Hello everyone, this is Suneve and I'm coming to you with You'll Learn to Love Me, a Yandere Masky X-Reader by FluffyWubs. We're going to be starting off with Chapter 12. We honestly did nothing besides sitting on the couch with a blanket and watch movies. The last thing I remember is that I was all warm and comfortable under the blanket as my head rested on Tim's shoulder. And then I just blacked out. Currently, I was in the state of being half conscious and half unconscious. I heard the soft sound of the TV in the background as I felt Tim's body slightly shift. His arm was tightly wrapped around my body, holding me close to his own. I heard him mutter out something, but from being in my sleepy state, his voice sounded as if it were underwater. The comfort of Tim's hold was suddenly gone as my head was gently placed on something more softer. I stirred in my spot, fluttering my eyes open as I pushed myself into a sitting position by my elbows. Tim was already standing up, readjusting his jacket over his body. He noticed me already awake, which had made him lightly pat my hair. "I hope you slept well." His voice was hushed, and I rubbed my eyes and looked up into his brown orbs. Where are you going?" I asked. Tim's smile fades, which becomes replaced by a frown. "I have to go," he replies in a soft voice as he casts a glance toward the phone in his hand. "Again?" I ask. There's something up he keeps leaving every time he gets a message on his phone. Could it be his acquaintances, the other killers? I just can't let the idea of Tim being a killer be put to rest. I need to know. I take a hold of his hand and lightly tug it towards me. "Tim," I mumble rather softly. Tim looks right back at me and gives me a questioning hum along with a small smile. "You aren't hiding anything from me, right? You would tell me anything, right?" I ask. Tim purses his lips before nodding. "Of course." "Liar," he thought. "I would never hide something from you," he said. "Liar," he thought again. The small voice at the back of my head just told me that he's the one. He's the killer that was on the loose, but I want to make sure. He hasn't killed me yet, so who knows? I lightly squeeze his hand. "Can you stay for the night?" I ask. If I want to find out that he's the killer, he should be staying here the entire night. I'm sure his other two partners will come looking for him if I can just get the slightest proof that he's the killer. Tim looked visibly nervous, but tried to play it off. "I would really like that, but I really need to be going." Tim fiddled with his phone in his free hand, occasionally glancing at the time. I can notice him continuously biting the inside of his cheek as if trying to refrain himself from speaking another word. I frown and avert my gaze from him, giving him my best impression that I was hurt. I don't feel safe here on my own, and I was really hoping he'd stay. I mutter, slowly releasing Tim's hand from my grip, and I cast a quick glance his way and notice that he seems hesitant by now. With my hand rubbing my arm and my head hanging low, I'm sure I convinced him by now. Tim let out a sigh of defeat and sat back down next to me. I felt an arm wrap around my waist, and the next thing I know, I'm pressed up against his body. "I really don't like seeing you down, you know," Tim hums. I feel his index finger and thumb lightly grip my chin, gently lifting up my head so that my eyes meet his. He gives me a small smile and pecks the tip of my nose with his lips. "I only stay if you show me your smile," he states firmly. I was surprised, really. I was thinking he'd just tell me he was going to leave no matter what. Gosh, he just gives off this genuine, caring type of vibe. I force a smile upon my lips, a rather convincing one, making Tim beam. "There it is. You're so cute." Tim grins brightly and pokes the tip of my nose once, making my nose scrunch up. I can't believe someone like him could be a potential killer. I guess I have to find that out soon. Maybe I won't wake up after falling asleep tonight. I shudder at the thought. Just keep your mind on the actual task for now. "I'm just going to make a quick phone call, okay? I'll be right back." Tim unwraps himself from me, immediately taking all the warmth away with him. "Okay, don't take long," I say as my eyes follow Tim, who decides to have his phone call outside of my apartment. He wouldn't bail or something, right? Tim steps outside and leaves the door slightly open so that he'll allow himself back in once he's done. I don't want to be the type of person that proceeds to eavesdrop on conversation, but I feel like I have to. Could he be talking to his partners? I could already hear the soft murmuring of his voice from the outside. He was keeping his voice so low that I barely heard anything. I threw the blanket off of myself before standing up from the couch, as silent as possible. I make my way towards the door on the tip of my toes. The closer I got, the clearer the words got. Tim's voice was hushed to the point where his voice sounded a tad husky. I wasn't sure to who or what he was talking about, mainly because I kept hearing his footsteps pacing back and forth above the sound of his voice. However, I did catch a few words that slipped here and there, something along the lines of mission, boss, and other words that weren't too important. I wonder who he was talking to. His voice sounded more panic as time went by and a tad more stress along with a hint of frustration. I wonder what's going on. I was so intensely listening that I didn't even realize Tim had ended the call until he suddenly went quiet. I took this as a sign to bolt away from the door as fast as possible. I quickly rushed back to the couch and threw the blanket back over myself as if I hadn't moved from my spot. After a minute or so, Tim finally came back inside, muttering inaudible things to himself. He shut the door behind him with a quiet sigh. I look over the back of the couch, seeing Tim running a hand through his chestnut hair. He doesn't look too bright. Why do I feel worried? I shouldn't be feeling this way for a potential killer. Are you okay? I pipe up softly, making Tim's gaze shift over to me. He casually smiles and takes his seat back next to me. I'm fine. He lets out a soft chuckle, reassuring me with a quick kiss to the cheek. I shifted my spot, looking up at him with genuine concern. I felt worry, actual, genuine worry. Did something happen? You look more stressed than before, I comment. Tim reluctantly shakes his head. It's nothing, I just feel a bit tired, Tim admitted. Lightly rubbing the corner of one of his eyes, I pursed my lips and grabbed my phone off the armrest of the couch to check the time. Well, he has a point. It's almost 10 p.m. or so. You can go to sleep if you want. My room's over there. I point a finger towards the direction of my room. Tim follows the direction of my finger and then turns to look at me in confusion. Where are you going to sleep? He questions. My cheeks darken a bit as I huddle myself into the blanket around me. The couch? I respond. No, you're not. This is your home. Why are you supposed to sleep on the couch? Tim's tone sounded amused as he shifted himself closer to me. Because you're the guest? I shrug my shoulder playfully, sticking my tongue out to him. Tim lightly laughs and shakes his head. That's just the sleep talking. Go to bed. I'll stay on the couch, Tim protests against my offer. I really didn't want to go back and forth on this, so I just gave up and I sigh, standing up from my spot. Alright, fine. I hold my hands up in defeat. Tim grins in victory. Let me get you a few more blankets and pillows, I hum before heading to my room. I had a couple of extra blankets and pillows in my closet and cabinet, so they should do. I return to the living room with the pillows and blankets in my arms and place them next to Tim. If you need anything else, just tell me, alright? I state. Tim chuckles and nods his head. Sure. Good night, Ryan. Tim smiles, grabbing one of my hands and placing a quick kiss on top of it. I can't help but giggle a bit as I retract my hand. Night, Tim. I say my goodnight before heading to my room, shutting the door behind me. I let out a puff of breath before heading to my bed and plopping down onto it. I didn't feel like switching to my nightwear, so I guess I'll just sleep with the clothes I already had on. Crawling into bed, I quickly dig myself under the covers. I have to be honest, I do feel a bit frightened. Hell, I might not even wake up tomorrow. I might never wake up at all. This is a big risk I'm taking, and I'm willing to take this big risk to find out the truth. I hum lightly to myself, resting my head on the soft pillow before closing my eyes. I just need to relax. I wake up. I didn't wake up for no reason, but the throbbing sensation in my head just made me jolt awake. I placed my hand on my forehead only to realize that I was hotter than the actual sun. I was breathing heavily and my head was still pounding. How did I get the sudden headache out of nowhere? My ears start ringing and I hunch over, gripping at my head. God, it hurts. This isn't normal. I can't hear anything around me. All I hear is static as my head feels like it's about to explode. I can't help but let whimpers escape from my lips without being able to even hear them. The static kept growing louder in my head. I need fresh air. I try to hop out of the bed, only to feel extremely dizzy the moment I stand on my feet, causing me to tumble down. I take deep breaths, trying to calm down. I'm probably just sick. That has to be it. I feel nauseous and I grab a hold of my bed frame, trying to pull myself back up. I can't. If I try to stand on my feet, my legs start trembling and eventually give up. Oh God, the pain. I feel something wet drip onto my hand and I try to look at the back of my hand, only to take note that my vision has doubled. I swallow hard. I want to call for help, yet I can't. My throat felt as if it was being tightened up by something that prevented me from getting a word out. I look up at my door, realizing that it somehow had opened up. What? I never opened the door, have I? I feel something or someone pull me up to my feet and hold me steady. I couldn't process what exactly was happening. I feel a refreshing cold hand on my warm cheek and I turn to look at whoever was holding me. Tim. His expression was full of panic and worry. He was talking to me, but I couldn't hear it. Next thing I know, I'm outside. I'm not sure how or when I got here, but I guess I just somehow got there. I feel my body shake from the cold and a pair of arms wrap tighter around my body. Am I being carried? I don't really know. I feel too sick to actually figure that out. The static from my head was dying down as I realized I was getting further and further away from my complex. I came back to most of my senses and registered the fact that Tim was the one carrying me. Tim? Oh, no, not exactly. I know that it's Tim, but he has his mask covering his face, making him change into his alter ego, Masky. My heart was thumping out of fear at this point. Christ, my boyfriend really is a sick, twisted murderer. I was ready to scream and thrash out of his grip until I suddenly see something fly past us. Tim, or should I say Masky, screeches to a halt. I look up ahead and notice that a razor-sharp hatchet was right in front of Masky's feet. Masky's breathing was ragged. He sounded exhausted, panicked, and surprisingly afraid. "Get off my ass, Rogers." Tim's voice wasn't the usual smooth tone anymore, as if he completely changed into this Masky character, and Tim was no longer to be seen anywhere. I keep my eyes fixated up ahead, noticing the familiar skinny teen approach Masky and I. In one of his hands, he held the handle of one of his dirtied hatchets. He wiped the blade against the fabric of his pants and kept his distance from Masky. "We can do this easily." Toby's body jerked and cracked as he placed his hatchet back in his belt. "Kill the girl right now, and my job will be a lot easier," Toby stated. I mean, look at yourself. What the fuck are you doing? You're daring to disobey Slender's rules? Shame. Toby shook his head, his neck cracked with each shake, making me internally cringe. I could notice Masky glance down at me, realizing I was fully back to my senses. "Stand your ground." Masky's rough voice practically sneered at me as he placed me back onto my feet. I stumbled a bit before regaining my balance. Masky grabbed the sleeve of my shirt to keep me in place, and I trembled from both cold and fear as I kept my gaze glued to the twitching teen a few feet in front of Masky and I. Toby stared right back at me with his unnerving gaze. I could see Toby's hand slowly sliding over his last hatchet. Before I could say anything about it, I just saw it fly straight towards me. By a harsh tug of my sleeve, I was pulled to the side, causing the blade of the hatchet to miss me by just a few inches. Fuck. I could hear Toby shout in frustration as my wrist was snatched. "Move it." Masky practically dragged me along with him, forcing my legs into a sprint. I don't know where I was or where I was going. All I know is that I'm outside, being taken by a murderer against my will. At this point, there's nothing to do. Either get killed by this crazed person or get killed by a psychopathic teenager with hatchets as toys. It's all going so fast, I'm not even sure what's going on now. Masky shoved me into a car, which I recognized it to be my car. He most likely got the keys from somewhere in my apartment. He stuck the keys into the ignition, starting up his car. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly in anticipation as the car took its sweet time to completely warm up. In the distance, I could see Toby catch up with both of his hatchets in hands. Masky stomped his feet on the gas pedal, causing the car to speed off. My back hits the backrest of the passenger seat from the sudden fast movement, and I scrambled to grab the seatbelt and quickly strap it over myself. Toby's reflection could be seen on the rearview mirror. He looks like he completely gave up and seemed rather furious. His frame got smaller and smaller in just a few seconds before he completely disappeared from my sight. As soon as Toby couldn't be seen anymore, Masky's tense body seemed to relax as he let out a sigh of relief. I was still stunned and shocked from the experience. My adrenaline was pumping nonstop, and it probably wouldn't stop anytime soon. Especially with a killer right next to me. That is the end of that chapter. The chapter after that is chapter 13. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next time I upload, okay? And hopefully we can get back in the gist of things of this. Also, I'm sorry I sound so gross. I've been trying to, get away from the mic to sniffle. I'm sorry. My nose is a little runny and I hate it. But until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.